Third voice and it should pick up everything.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name.
Chris Gillum, Gillum.
Where do you work?
Manatee County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you worked there?
22 years.
And did you work somewhere else before for several years? How many years?
Yes, City of Palmetto Police Department for 12 years.
Okay. And what position do you currently hold at Manatee?
I am currently a domestic violence investigator.
And how long have you been in that unit?
12 years.
I said in that unit, but if you could just describe, does Manatee County Sheriff's Office have a unit for domestic violence?
Yes, we do. We have 4 detectives.
Okay. And where and how is that unit housed?
We are housed at our building is the 3500 block of 9th Street West is the actual address. And within our building, it's my unit and the Crimes Against Children detectives as well.
Okay. Were you in that same position back in 2017 to 2020?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Back then, did your department house child protection services?
Yes, at that time we did.
Okay. And explain that. Were they with you in the same area, or how did that work?
No, they were on the other side of the building. We had our own area, and they were on the completely opposite side of the building.
And were they actually employees of the sheriff's office?
Yes.
Okay. Did you do a lot of stuff with them together? A lot of investigations together?
The domestic violence unit, we did not. Every so often, that was mostly the Crimes Against Children detectives that worked with them.
And as a domestic violence detective, have you investigated violations of injunctions and that type of thing?
I certainly have.
Okay. Now, sometimes when someone is asking for an injunction, or when an injunction is violated, it can be charged criminally, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Or they can take other avenues
That's
to address
correct.
the violation. But you're not involved in that other avenue if it's a different court, correct?
Yes, I'm not involved in that.
All right. Did you become familiar at some point with someone named Ashley Benefield?
I did.
And when was that?
December of 2017.
Okay. Generally, what were the circumstances, without it getting into a lot of detail?
She reported that her husband violated an injunction that was in place out of South Carolina.
Okay. And that came to you?
Correct.
Right. And we've heard several mentionings of poisoning. Did this have to do with the same issue?
It was the same case, yes, but I had nothing to do with that investigation.
Okay. So the poisoning itself, you didn't have any contact with. It was just the violation of injunction.
Correct.
Okay. Did you speak to Ashley?
I did.
How many times would you say you spoke to Ashley?
I think a fair number would be 30 to 40.
Okay. And generally speaking, was that because you were contacting her or she was contacting you?
No, she started contacting me on a regular basis beginning around February of 2018.
Okay. And what was she contacting you about?
She was wanting to know the status of the case and when Doug would be getting arrested for the violation of the injunction.
Okay. And when you do a violation of injunction, when you're investigating a violation of injunction, you can do several things, correct? You can, well, explain what you can do with it.
We can make a physical arrest in the case. There could be no charges filed in the case, or we can send the case to the state attorney's office.
Okay. So if you send the case to the state attorney's office, what does that mean?
We're just letting them make the ultimate decision if they think there's enough for charges to be filed in this case.
Okay. So it sounds like there's no charges and then arrest and...
Sustained.
So you said Ms. Benefield was calling you asking about the arrest of Mr. Benefield?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you tell her?
That the case was still suspended at that point, and when I had an answer for her, I would let her know.
Okay. And so that was the beginning of your conversations,
Yes.
right? So, did she continue to call
Yes, repeatedly. Twice a week at least.
and speak to you personally?
Yes.
And what was her comments? What were her concerns?
It was the same thing. When was Doug going to be?
And speak to you personally?
Yes.
And what was her comments? What were her concerns?
It was the same thing. When was Doug going to be arrested for violating the injunction?
Had you ever told her that he was going to be arrested?
I did not.
Okay. At some point, did you decide to forward the charges?
I did.
And is that to the state attorney's office like we talked about?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Did you inform her of that?
I sure did.
Okay. And what was her reaction to that?
She was upset that he was not being arrested.
Okay. Were you able to explain to her that the process and how this was going to go?
Sustained.
Were you able to explain the process to her?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And how did she take that?
She was not happy that I was not placing Doug under arrest.
Okay. At some point, did you speak to Ashley Benefield again, and she told you about a court hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Approximately when was that conversation?
Around the first week of May 2018.
May 2018. And what did she say?
She just got right into the phone call and requested that I arrest Doug for a hearing that was coming up in Manatee County.
Okay, you just said arrest for a hearing.
Yes.
But arrest at a hearing?
Yeah, said that there was a upcoming hearing in Manatee County.
Okay. And was that hearing involving your case or something else?
It was something else. It was not my case.
Okay. Did you know that there was a hearing or there was even a court issue going on?
I did not.
So she told you there was a court hearing, and did she tell you when it was?
No, that just shows there was an upcoming hearing, and she asked for me to arrest Doug when he came inside the courtroom in front of the presiding judge.
Okay. And what was your reaction to that?
That absolutely would not occur.
Okay. And how did she take that?
She was upset. And at that point, I would call it a dramatic cry, hysterical cry, started happening. And I'm still informing her, we're not going to do that. We're just not going to arrest him in the courtroom. And she made a comment, something to the effect of, if the judge sees you arrest him, this will help me keep my baby. So I thought that was a pretty bold statement. And I'm like, I'm still trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. She just gave birth. Maybe she's confused. And I'm trying to explain to her gently, that's just not going to happen, especially not going to happen for a judge to see to help you in a civil matter.
And did you, in fact, explain all that to her?
Yes, I did.
And how did she react?
We went back and forth 5 minutes or so. Her just kept requesting to arrest him. I said, this is not going to happen. And her tone turned from the crying to very aggressive, and she says, you will effing arrest him in front of the judge, and I will make sure you do it.
What did you say to that?
I started pushing back a little bit, and I said, it's not going to happen. Whatever you say or do, you cannot make me arrest somebody in front of a judge, and it's just not going to happen.
And what did she do?
I guess she started crying again, and came out with a comment, something to the effect of, I can't believe you're willing to allow Doug to kill me and the baby.
Okay.
And that hadn't come up in this phone call. The phone call dealt with me arresting Doug in front of a judge. And then it turned to not arresting him and allowing me to let him kill her and the baby.
Okay. So that seemed kind of different to you?
Yes.
Than what you had previously been doing?
Yes.
Okay. How long did this conversation go on?
20 to 30 minutes.
Okay.
For up to that time, it's probably 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay. And during this time, excuse me, did the defendant ever seem to understand the process of what you were saying?
No.
And at some point, did she change from crying again?
She did.
What did she do?
It just abruptly changed, and she let out like a screech or a high-pitched scream. And she says, "I'll do whatever I have to do to kill my baby, or keep my baby, you a-hole."
Okay. So it's a high-pitched scream, or did you say scream or screech?
Like a screech at first, but it was I'll call it a screech.
A screech.
Yeah.
And tell me, what volume is this?
I could just say it's a very loud, maybe top of lung type scream.
Okay. Could you demonstrate to us?
It's impossible. There's no way I could.
Why would it be impossible?
I couldn't get my voice that high. There's no way.
So it was loud and it was high.
Yes.
And she said, can you repeat what she said?
I will do anything I have to do to keep my baby, you a-hole.
You a-hole. And did she say a-hole?
No, she said the full word.
Okay. And after she said that, what'd she do?
At that point, I had checked out of the phone call, and I was pretty much ready to hang up the phone on her. And she accused me of conspiring with Doug to get her baby taken away.
And had you even spoken to Doug about custody of the child?
No.
Okay. Were there other detectives around you at the time of this phone call?
Yes, there were two other detectives.
And do you recall their names?
Oh, yes. Detective Patricia Hetrick and Detective Brian Moreland.
And did they appear to recognize that you were on a difficult call?
Oh, they did. And at one point, Brian even asked me if I needed some help.
Sustained. Sustained.
And at some point, how did the phone call end?
Ms. Benefield terminated the phone call.
Okay. And you seem to have a good memory of this call.
Yes.
And why do you have a good memory of this call?
Because in my 12 years of doing this, I've never had anybody ask me to arrest someone in front of a judge inside of a courtroom. Now, I have had people call me before and say somebody may be appearing in court that I'm looking for so I can arrest them, but I've never had somebody say, wait until he's inside the courtroom in front of the judge.
Thank you. No further questions.
Cross.
Just a moment, Your Honor. Afternoon, Detective Gillum.
Good afternoon, sir.
I want to ask you a few questions about report writing.
Sure.
Do they teach that to you in police academy?
Sure. Back in 1989, they did, yes.
Okay. It's obviously an important part of police work.
Sure.
How many cases would you say could you average that you handle in a month?
20?
Okay. And over the course of a year, we're talking about
300 closed.
So, are you familiar with the saying that they give you in police academy, if it's not in the report, it didn't happen?
I've heard that before, yes.
All right. And that's because the report is obviously more reliable than your memory.
I could understand that, yes.
All right. at 20 cases a month, 2.5 years later, you're into like 600 cases. If you got your report, you can refresh your recollection rather than have to recall off the top of your head.
Sure.
Which is why you want to put critical details in your report, because that's what you want to remember.
Correct.
Not necessarily that somebody had on mismatching socks, but that they had something that's significant to the investigation.
Sure.
All right. So your initial involvement, you told us in the case, is speaking with Ashley Benefield on or about May 31st of 2018 regarding the domestic violence injunction in South Carolina.
That wasn't the first time I spoke with her, no. There were several incidents I spoke several times I did.
Did you speak with her on or about the 31st of
I was
May?
prior to that.
Okay, about the South Carolina injunction.
Yes.
All right. And just to be clear, we're talking about the same thing. There was a court that had issued an injunction in South Carolina, stay away from one another.
Yes, in South Carolina, that is correct, sir.
Okay. Now, at some point, did you bring any of the reports that you wrote with you here today?
I did.
Do you recall how many you wrote?
Supplemental reports, 3 or 4.
Yes. All right. So initially, if I can ask you about the sequence of these events, Ms. Benefield had gone down to the Manatee County Sheriff's Office to complain about a package that she received because it came while the South Carolina injunction was in effect.
Yes.
All right. And it would have been Deputy Wesley Weber, to your knowledge, had requested a capias based upon Ms. Benefield's receipt of that package.
Correct.
Just so the ladies and gentlemen of the jury understand, a capias is
Objection.
arrest warrant.
It's testifying, and
Sustained.
it's all hearsay.
What is a capias?
A capias is information where a deputy believes that there's probable cause for someone's arrest.
All right. And that was issued by Deputy Wesley Weber.
Correct.
And that would have been on December 14th of 2017.
That sounds correct.
Now, a month later, well, actually, several months later, on May 31st of 2018,
Objection, Judge. I called for hearsay, but I apologize, I wasn't finished the question.
did you write the first of your supplemental reports?
Yes.
And in that report, you stated that Ms. Benefield,
Objection. Hearsay.
Sustained.
in the report, did you indicate,
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
did you write anything in your report in describing,
Objection, hearsay.
Can you approach, please?
hold on, let me have one more shot at it. Did you document in your report anything different than you told us here today about how you characterized Ms. Benefield's demeanor?
I didn't go into any details in that supplement at all, in that one.
May I show him the report?
Judge Gillum?
Yes.
During that time, Detective Gilliam, back in May of 2018, you overrode Deputy Wesley Weber's capious request, correct?
I did.
Okay. And you put the case on an inactive status.
Yes.
And I think you decided, as you told us, it would be submitted to the state attorney's office.
That is correct.
Now, on June 5th of 2018, you interviewed Douglas Benefield, did you not?
Correct.
And he admitted to you.
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
What was his position with respect when you asked him,
Objection, hearsay.
Finish the question.
did you send the package to Miss Benefield?
Sustained.
Did you make a determination from your conversation with Mr. Benefield whether or not a package had been sent to Miss Benefield?
Objection, relevant.
Overruled.
Can you ask the question again, please?
Sure. Did you make a determination as a result of your investigation whether a package had been sent to Miss Benefield?
Yes.
Did you make a determination as to who sent it?
Yes.
Who?
Douglas Benefield.
Did you make a determination of what the contents of the package were?
It was a T-set.
And was hazmat called?
Objection, Judge. Hearsay.
Sustained.
As part,
Did you say hazmat?
yes, sir. As part of
Sustained.
As part of your investigation, did you make any determination whether or not there was a response by
Objection, hearsay.
any other agency to this package that was sent to Miss Benefield?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you tell Mr. Benefield that you would be able to unfound the case if he sent you the receipt?
Objection, hearsay.
I'm asking him if he told Mr. Benefield.
Can you please approach?
Did you tell Mr. Benefield?
Can you please approach? Can you please approach
Oh,
the bench?
sorry. I think the last question I asked you was, did you tell Douglas Benefield you could unfound the case if he sent you the receipt for the sending of this package of tea?
No.
So did you write a supplemental report as a result of this interview with Mr. Benefield?
Yes.
And this would have been on June 5th of 2018.
That's correct.
Now, did you put and document in that report anything about Miss Benefield?
I would have to look. If you don't mind, I can certainly.
Please.
No, I don't see anything about Ms. Benefield in the supplement.
Okay, you did determine, though, that the package, once you got the receipt, you determined the date the package was sent.
Yes.
And that was on when?
November 27th, which is when the injunction was signed off on by the judge. It was the
Yeah.
same day.
But you also determined that the hearing on the injunction was November 3rd, 2007.
That was the hearing, but the judge did not sign off on this until the 27th, which was the same day, so.
Right. But at the hearing, Mr. Benefield was present when the judge announced.
Yes, when he announced, but it was
Okay.
my understanding it's not in effect until the judge granted his signature on the 27th, which is the same day that Mr. Benefield sent out that TSET.
Okay. Who is the lead detective in this case,
For which case?
for the homicide case?
I'm not sure.
Is it Detective Warren?
I don't know.
Do you recall contacting Detective Warren on November 30th, 2020 at 7:47 a.m.?
I do remember contacting him. I'm not sure if that's the date, but yes, I did.
Okay. And do you now recall that Detective Warren is the lead homicide investigator?
I'm not sure if he was the lead. I know that he was at that scene, but I'm not sure if he's the lead investigator.
Okay, so you talked to Detective Warren on that day.
Yes.
All right. You then, 16 days later, Detective wrote another supplementary report, correct?
I'm not sure if it was 16 days later. I would have to.
Why don't you take a look and
Sure.
see if that report isn't 16 days following your contact with Detective Warren.
And when did you say I contacted Detective Warren?
You contacted Detective Warren on September 30th, 2020 at 7:47 a.m.
Yes, I entered a supplement on October 15th of 2020.
Okay. Now, following your conversation with Detective Warren on that day, September 30th, 2020, at 7:47 a.m. in the morning, you write a third supplement, do you not?
Correct.
And it's dated October 15th, 2020,
That is correct.
16 days after speaking with Detective Warren.
That is correct.
In that supplement, you list, do you not, the details of what you described today about how Miss Benefield behaved.
That's correct.
So let's make sure we understand this now. This is 2.5 years following the discussion that you related to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury of Miss Benefield's response. 2.5 years later, you remember the details of the conversation
Absolutely.
and exactly what she said. Quotes, you quote her.
Yes.
But you never mention one word of it in your supplement that you wrote on June 5th of 2018.
You are absolutely correct.
Nothing further. Let me just check. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Why didn't you add that information to your supplement back in 2018?
In my initial supplement, which was May 31st, I did put in that supplement that she demanded an arrest be made in the courtroom when he appeared. At the time of my interaction with her, I didn't see anything she said at that time as a direct threat to Doug. It had no relevance to my case. I saw this as her just having this massive meltdown because she wasn't getting her way with me. So at that point, it was just not relevant for my case. There was no reason, but circumstances have changed. I thought that's information that needed to be heard.
Okay. So, and what circumstances?
Obviously, Mr. Benefield is deceased at this time.
Okay.
And her words at that time may have had an entirely different meaning. I did not take it as a threat. I took her saying that I'll do whatever I have to do to keep my baby, you a-hole, as my manipulation attempt for the court system. Not that she was going to create any harm to Mr. Benefield. Now, she never mentioned anything like that. She was never any threats. But I just took that as a manipulation attempt. When she wasn't getting her way with me, it was a meltdown. And there was just no reason for me to put that in my supplement that she was having this massive meltdown because I wasn't going to buy into it.
And so after she murders Doug Benefield, you thought it was relevant, obviously.
I thought that was very relevant information that needed to be heard.
And did you reach out to someone about that?
I did.
Or did they reach out to you?
I reached out to him.
You reached out to Detective Warren,
Yes.
correct? Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Did Detective Warren direct you to write this up?
Absolutely not. I wouldn't take orders from him to begin with.
And 2.5 years later, you remember that she said specific things. This will help me keep my baby if the judge sees you arrest him, quote unquote.
Yes, because it's a very, very bizarre comment I've never heard before in my career.
That's like 600 something cases later.
That's fair.
That's all. Okay, can you be released from the subpoena?
Yes.